Well, I've had the opportunity to visit China a number of times in the last 6 to 8 years, 10 years. And there are a few things that I would like to share with you all, which really, I think there's a lot of potential. First, I feel that audiences in China, the cultural, flavor in China, the emotions of the people in China, they're very similar to the emotions of Indians. So the Chinese audience reacts in a very similar way to content the way that Indians. That's what my experience was. When I was watching, a number of my films in the screen in China, and the audience was reacting to Dangal, let's say, there was absolutely no difference between an Indian audience reacting to the film and a Chinese audience reacting. It was almost identical, the reaction. So I feel that there is a lot of scope and potential for a number of reasons. One, I think India has a very vibrant creative community, and so does China. China has got amazing creative people. I've been to China a number of times. I've seen their live events as well, and I've seen their movies. Their standard of their work is clearly world class. And I think that itself is a great opportunity for India and China to collaborate and work together. I think that whether it's creatively, whether it's on an emotional level, or whether it's even from a business perspective, I think it is only a win-win if we collaborate with China. And in fact, over the years, I have been in discussions with my friends from China, and we have often explored the possibility. But now with waves coming in, I think it will give a further drive towards that. I mean, if you look at a film, Indo-Chinese film, if you have a star from China and you have a star from India, that's roughly half the population of the earth, if you know what I mean. So you have a huge audience already over there. And both India and China have they're very ancient civilizations with a lot of history to them. Both India and China are very ancient civilizations. So I think there's a lot that both of these countries and cultures can offer each other. And I really look forward to a collaboration with talent from China.
Prasad, would you like to talk about how currently Chinese audiences are perceiving India? What kind of storytelling they would look out for, and what are the potential areas we should work?
So one of the things which kind of personally for me when I went to China years ago was that the way human emotion works, the way family emotion works, the way the value system about parents aspiring for their kids to be successful, worried about their marriage, even smaller details like, how a parent will take care of its kids all the way till they are 40, 45. It's very similar. So I realized that one of the biggest opportunity Indian filmmakers had for China as a market was to tell stories which are very authentic to Indian culture. Because there's not so much difference between Indian culture and Chinese culture. So there is no requirement for say, okay, let's go back to the factory and find out what is that formula which will crack the market. No. We'll make good films here. We'll make good films anywhere. And China somehow has accepted the cinema from around the world. Whether it's Aamir's films, whether it's films from France, whether it's films from any part of the world. It's the story, it's the way the emotions have worked in your own country. That's the same way it works in China.
Yeah. Well, actually, the reason why I come to India to make movies is like when I was a kid in primary school. When I always draw the Taj Mahal. The building, the architect is so fascinating. And then when I learned martial art, the Shaolin Kung Fu, and I found, Damo is coming from India.
Bodhidharma.
Yeah,
Bodhidharma.
And Buddha, the Buddhism, I studied that. And then when I make the movie 20 years ago, The Myth with Jackie Chan, and I put in the Karate Paya too, the ancient, Indian martial art into the movie. Yeah, and I want to show You know, a lot of Chinese audience doesn't know about Kalati Payatu, you know, and also I found out there's so many beautiful scenery, you know, and a lot of great cultures that we don't know. And only when I come over in 1993, first time, I actually from the Himalaya to the south to the Bangalore, I tour around the whole country. And I found so many fascinated and so many stories that I want to make. So for the last 20 years, and I managed to make 3 films in India. Because I found Indian film, I learned a lot because Indian film always about family value, friendship, love, and social issues. You know, all of these issues is really resonate to the Chinese audience. You know, emotional and relatable storytelling that I think that in the future there's a lot of opportunity for us to be joined together because we are good neighbor, and then we share our culture for thousands of years, you know. And I was just talking to Prasad, you know, on my way to India, and we were waiting on the launch. We talk about 3 story that are connect that we could make together. I've been talking to Aamir, you know, and working together on some projects. So I really wanted to have more co-production between China and India. And just like what Aamir was saying, that we have huge population, we have huge follower for Bollywood movie and also Chinese movie. Why don't we make more movie together and we share our actors, we share our writers and directors, then maybe we can make some better film for the world.
My only association with Indian cinema was Shashi Kapoor when I was a boy in the 70s. Because I grew up in Thailand, half of my high school class are Indians, and I would be eating their lunchbox aloo prata, which I kept asking for that when I come to India, and my friend Prasad keeps saying that nobody eats that. You don't order aloo prata in the restaurant.
You don't get aloo paratha in Mahesh lunchroom. You know, you should not.
Not in Mahesh lunchroom, but you get it everywhere.
Everywhere else, don't.
I always ask for aloo prata. And well, that's my other association with Indian cinema was in 2005, I was asked to make a musical by 3 Indian investors. One Tamil Indian, one from Malaysia, one from Sri Lanka, and one from Hong Kong, to make a first musical in China called Perhaps Love. And I flew into Mumbai for the first time, and I met with Farah Khan, who was the top grossing director from Om Shanti Om. And she agreed to be my choreographer, and she brought 12 Indian dancers to be in Shanghai in the musical with all Chinese, but 12 Indian dancers. And so that's an anomaly. So that is not really an Indian-China co-production, but because we could use services and expertise from each other's industry, we got to work together. And I started making friends with Indian filmmakers, Aamir, Prasad, who lives close by in Shanghai. And then I also met with Raju. I was made by my assistant to watch 3 Idiots, where the first 15 minutes I couldn't get into because it's very different from my style of filmmaking. And it took me 3 to 4 times until I watched the whole thing. And I watched it 5 times with my daughter, with my wife, and then with my 3 different group of friends in the cinema. And that took me completely into the world of Indian cinema. And back then there was still a lot of song and dance. And now Indian cinema has evolved into something that is not strictly Bollywood, like we used to know Bollywood. So, and then I make friends with Aamir Khan, who has great stories to tell. And I think it's about time that we, of course, between the Chinese population and the Indian population, I mean, we have more than half of the population of the world, but I think we need to make movies for the world. I mean, half the population is not enough. And to be able to please each other by putting an Indian actor in a Chinese film or a Chinese actor in an Indian film, I think it's not the only way to go. I think we should make the movie that we believe, we love. If it's a local movie, make it local.
The way I approach cinema and approach films that I work in, it has to be a very organic process. So what we are discussing on a surface level, that in principle I think that there are a lot of benefits for talent in China and India to work together. But the best and the most organic way of that happening is through writing. So it is always the story and it's always a script that comes first which excites a creative person. And it can come from a Chinese writer, it can come from an Indian writer, it doesn't matter. But importantly, it should excite, the creative communities on both sides who actually feel excited enough to come together and collaborate and make something. And obviously, it should naturally lend itself to both China and India in its theme, in its requirements of maybe actors, but certainly thematically something that connects the two. On a very surface level, you can say, let's make a big action film, let's have one Chinese star, one Indian star and one maybe Caucasian star, I don't know. So that's a very surface way of looking at it. One can go that route, but I don't really...
That doesn't excite you.
That doesn't excite me. What excites me is a story that... Because, writing is a very lonely job. But the fact is that every film starts with one person sitting alone with a paper and pen. And that, is of so much value, I cannot emphasize enough how important that is. And that organic process of a person sitting and writing down a story, which naturally involves, characters from China and India, which it has to happen organically. You can't force fit it. I always believe that you can't force fit anything. It has to come organically. With the environment being created, with the fact that as creative people we are being encouraged, I personally have now over the years a very, healthy relationship with the creative community in China. So I really look forward to it because I've seen the level of their work. It's outstanding work that people are doing in China. It would be a real pleasure for me to work with creative talent from China. But ideally, it should happen organically. It should happen in a manner which is very organic.